In this video I'm at Redridge Sports Centre, and what I've come to do today is to photograph table tennis. I'm using the OM1mkII and the 40-150 f2.8 lens. Now in this situation I can't use flash, I've got to up the ISO. I've been shooting at ISO 6400, 8000 and shooting wide open at 2.8. That is giving me roughly sort of 800th of a second, which is just about fast enough to freeze the action for table tennis. Now this is a national tournament. You've got players from all over the country. Basically it's a sport tour and the lighting's not ideal, but by using this lens, people often say with the OM1mkII it's a camera that's really designed for nature photographers, bird photographers, macro photographers, landscape photographers. Not really a lens that you're going to use for sports photography or camera for sports photography. But I'm quite pleased with some of the shots that I've taken today. I've taken loads actually. I filled one card up, so I've got probably about 3,000 shots. What I'll do is I'll put them on the computer, whittle them down to 200 or 300 and pick the best ones out and show you just to show you that the OM1mkII is actually a very good camera for sports photography.
So what I'm going to do now is show you some of the pictures I took over the 2 days of the tournament. Unless stated differently, all the shots are taken using the 40-150 f2.8 lens. I was using manual exposure, shooting in RAW, ISO 6400, shutter speed was 800th of a second, and I was shooting on sequential low. This allowed me to take a short burst of shots when the action looked good in the viewfinder. Even though I was using the low sequential setting, I still ended up shooting nearly 6,000 shots over the 2 days. When photographing indoor sports, you cannot just turn up and start taking pictures without obtaining a media pass, and these can be quite difficult to obtain. Because I had photographed at table tennis tournaments before, I was fortunate enough to be granted an accreditation. Both OM system and Panasonic's main target area for the Micro Four Thirds system is nature and landscape photographers. Consequently, I thought it would be interesting to see how the OM1mkII would perform for indoor sport. I have previously photographed other sports with the OM1, but these were outdoor sports like jet ski, motocross and whitewater canoeing. Those events were out in the open where the light was quite good, and on each occasion the Micro Four Thirds system had produced excellent results. This event was different. It was indoor sport where the lighting and backgrounds would be challenging to say the least. There were three main problems I encountered photographing at the tournament. Firstly, whilst the light was fine for table tennis, for photography it was quite difficult. I had to ramp up the ISO to attain a reasonable shutter speed. Using 800th of a second allowed me to obtain some sharp pictures without totally freezing the action. Sometimes it's good to get a slight sense of movement in the pictures anyway. Secondly, getting the correct white balance with indoor lighting is always a problem, and although I was shooting in RAW, I found it difficult to get the correct skin tones and colours. The colour balance varied depending on what area of the hall you're in, which again was not helpful. Thirdly, the backgrounds at table tennis tournaments can be very messy and confusing, so getting an out-of-focus backdrop can be quite challenging. So basically, there are two main drawbacks of Micro Four Thirds system in comparison to a full-frame system. Firstly, when shooting at high ISOs, digital noise is a lot more evident on a Micro Four Thirds system than on a full-frame system, and a full-frame camera with its larger file size will always have an advantage in low-light situations. In a straight comparison of files taken at the same ISO, the full-frame system will have cleaner files that show less digital noise. That said, with modern day noise reduction software, this now becomes far less of an issue. Topaz denoise and the AI noise reduction in Lightroom and Camera Raw are all excellent, and the following before and after shot is a good example of how noise reduction can make a massive difference. The other main drawback is that it's a lot easier to get soft out of focus backgrounds with a full frame camera than in comparison to a Micro Four Thirds camera. You get greater depth of field with a Micro Four Thirds camera than you would with a full frame, which means it's not so easy to blur out the background. In this situation, where I have very little control over messy backgrounds, the OM1mkII is at a disadvantage compared to a full frame camera. Having said that, I do find that for 90% of the photography I do, mostly nature and landscape, the extra depth of field can be a big advantage. Again, with modern advances in AI software, obtaining soft out of focus backgrounds in post-production is not so much of an issue. In this shot, I show where on the original the background is quite messy. On the right hand shot, I have softened down the background in post-production. You can do this quite easily in either Photoshop or Lightroom. When photographing an event like this, you will soon notice that some of the players make better photographic subjects than others. Some are quite expressive in their facial expressions, and it was often those players that I tended to concentrate on. As I mentioned earlier, the main types of photographers who would see the benefit of a Micro Four Thirds system are nature and landscape photographers, but I hope that this video shows that the OM1mkII can also be a very good camera for indoor sports as well. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Thanks for watching.